What is good, Fit Family? It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro, and I am here today to talk about a subject that could be hard for many. So, trigger warning, this is a heavy topic, but something that I had to share and make sure that I share because I think it can help a lot of people. So, if you get triggered by disordered eating, discussions of disordered eating, binging, purging, things of that nature, then please scroll on or pass this by. But if you are looking for help, then stick around if you can handle it, because I hope that this can be helpful to you. All right, let's get into it. This is a real talk video this week about binging. For anybody out there who struggles with binge eating disorder, with binging, whether or not you have a diagnosis of a disorder, whether you have ever binged and purged, you struggle with eating, with your relationship with food, I love you. My heart is with you. I get it. I have been there. And this video is to share that I'm not perfect either. If you think that people in recovery from disordered eating or who have recovered never ever battle with these things again, like life just goes on and you never think about it anymore and it's just never going to be an issue for you again, that's just not reality. If you ever heard me share my full story, I was recovered for 18 plus years. Really didn't think about it at all, and then boom, hit me like a ton of bricks in 2020 and full on massive relapse for 6 months. So and here I am now on the other side of that. It's 2022, at the end of 2022. What in the world? How's the time going by so fast? So it's been almost 2 years now since my struggle, since I've now been in recovery, I'll call it. But it hasn't been all rainbows and butterflies, and I can't say that I have never had a binge. It has been almost 2 years since my last purge. And as I get into this, I want to share with you some really practical steps on how you can get yourself out of the cycle when you do have a binge. So I digress, but what this video is specifically about is what to do after a binge, how to recover quickly after a binge, what to do and what not to do to get back on track so you don't create any more damage and you can move on from it and continue your recovery, or improve your relationship with food and yourself and not continue to lapse. Now, 2 quick things. I just used 2 terms, relapse and lapse. A lapse is not a relapse. So if you find yourself having a binge after you thought you were recovered, that is not a relapse, okay? One time having a binge is not a relapse. Now, if it becomes a cycle again and you find yourself habitually binging or binging and purging, and I'll talk about purging because that can look like a lot of things, and you may think that you don't have any problem with purging, but you just may. So stick around for that. But we can get really down on ourselves. This is going to be another one of my tips and steps. We can get really down on ourselves so easily when we mess up with food or when we fall off. Even for those who have no disordered eating at all, but you struggle to stay on your chosen way of eating or your diet plan. When you fall off, it's like beating yourself up, and now it's harder to get back on the wagon, or whatever you want to call it, right? So, really important to note that it's not a relapse. 9 times out of 10, it's not as bad as you think it is. I'm going to talk about that later as well. All right, I keep saying what I'm going to talk about later. So let's just get straight into it. Okay, first and foremost, I binged. Last week, I had a binge. Not a small binge, an all-out binge, like the way I used to when I was in the height of my disorder. So it's crazy. It came out of nowhere. I didn't see this coming. It was like it slapped me across the face, and all of a sudden, I'm in the midst of this binge. And it has been, I can't even remember when my last binge was. That's how long it's been. So, needless to say, it was very jarring, very frustrating. I am now almost 9 weeks out to stage again. This time I am 100% going through with this competition. I've canceled 2 this year already. So this is it. We've been prepping basically all year, just taking little breaks throughout and maintaining a lot throughout. So it hasn't been a full-on cut. But if you watch my prep series, I just talked a little bit about this and mentioned that I would be doing this video. But I was at 10 weeks out. I nailed my last refeed day. Things were going really well. I felt really good in my body, felt great with my food, wasn't starving. Like, there's no real reason on the surface of why this binge should have happened. So, you know, you could say, oh, was I self-sabotaging? I'll tell you what, I don't believe in self-sabotage. I think that self-sabotage becomes a way that we hold ourselves in our bad habits. Oh, darn it, look at me, I self-sabotaged again. I'm such a self-sabotager. I don't do that. That is victimhood. I'm not a victim. So I'm not going to call it self-sabotage. I'm going to recognize what it truly is. So we'll get to that in a minute. All right, so in the moment, I really tried to talk myself through it, y'all. I tried to be in my rational mind, identify what thoughts I was present to, what might have been going on internally. Nothing. It was just like, go get the food. And it was a really surreal situation because even in the moment, I was like, all right, I'm not willing to go and buy things with gluten in them because I know how badly I will react to that. But I did also buy candy that must have had some dairy in it, had a whole bunch of crap ingredients in it. I wasn't thinking about that stuff, but for whatever reason, it was like, I'm not gonna buy Oreos because that has gluten, and I'm not gonna do the gluten-free Oreos because Oreos are such junk. It was like this weird, like, I didn't want it to be that bad, but then I was also buying like M&Ms and stuff. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into the details of what I did because I don't want to encourage this sort of thing. And it may sound weird, wacky, silly to those who don't understand eating disorders, but for those who've ever been in them, I have been personally triggered before by people talking about how they did it and then that creating some weird sense of wanting to do that too. I can't pretend to know all of the mechanisms that play there, but I don't want to play into that. Okay, so here's the deal. 2 things were going through my head at that point. It was, I need to figure out why this happened. So I know I'm going to have to spend some time really getting into and analyzing what happened here so that I can keep it from happening again. And secondly, how do I move forward from this? Because I am on prep. I don't want to stop. This was not a situation of, I don't think I'm going to be ready for a show, or I'm not lean enough, or I need to diet harder. I had been hitting my macros, if anything, going over a little bit. I was not under consuming. I was not malnourished. I was not doing any of the things that I was doing back in 2020. So I knew that it had nothing to do with body image. It had nothing to do with prep. And it had nothing to do with being starving and truly needing nutrition. There had to have been something else going on. So then the other side of that was, I don't want to have to stop prep because of this. Which I know if it becomes a pattern, I'm not going to be able to compete. And I really want to make it to the stage this year. And I felt and still do that I'm doing so well otherwise. So let's just nip this in the bud and figure it out. So this is why I'm making this video, because there were some things I did. It's now been a full week. I have not binged again. I have been on point with everything since then, have not missed a beat. And I want to explain how I was so able so quickly to flip it, turn it around, get right back on track, and not skip a step. Okay, so there were 6 steps that I analyzed that I did that I think are really important to do after a binge. And this can be after you do any kind of eating that throws you off track, so to speak, right? Once again, you don't have to be diagnosed and you don't have to have a full-blown eating disorder for this to benefit you. Okay, so first and foremost, in the moment. In the moment of the binge, I planned my escape. I planned the ending of the binge. I was like, okay, I'm seeing what's happening around myself right now. I'm in the midst of this. It doesn't have to continue. So I decided to stop right then and there. I still had some cookies in the car with me, y'all. And I was like, I'm driving to that outdoor trash can right there and I'm throwing them away. So that was the first thing I did. Threw away the rest of the foods. Okay, now I'm going to the gym. I was on my way to the gym, okay? So this was not me deciding to go to the gym and do an extra workout. I was on my way to the gym when I stopped and got the binge foods. So I followed through with my plan to go to the gym. You can imagine, and I was expecting to feel pretty ill after this episode was done. But then also, I also know that I have a slow slow digestive system. So I thought it could hit me while I'm in the gym and I could feel pretty crappy and I'm just going to have to work through it because I'm not skipping my training because of this. But I also knew it could hit me later that night. Either way, I knew that would happen. Okay, so it was go to the gym, complete my training as normal, do my cardio as normal, no additional cardio. This was really, really key, okay? And I'm gonna talk about this some more in a minute, but the most important thing, one of the most important things is to not do some kind of compensatory behavior to make up for the binge. That is what is bulimia. That is purging. Okay, so if you have never considered over-exercising or skipping meals after going off plan on your diet, if you have never considered that to be purging, I hate to break it to you, but that is purging. So anything that is a compensatory behavior that tries to make up for over-consuming food is considered a purge. So it doesn't have to be making yourself vomit or using laxatives, which are the two things we hear about all the time with bulimia. Anything else. So if you're going and you're doing 2 hours of cardio when you were not planned to do that much cardio that day, that is a purging behavior. If you are fasting, skipping meals, not eating your nutrition, not getting your nutrition in from real food after that, that is considered purging. So really important. I made that commitment right then and there. I know what to do practically to get myself out of this. I'm not allowed to do anything to try to fix it, okay? And I planned my escape. It was go to the gym, do my training, go home. I'm not stopping for anything else. Going to sleep, waking up tomorrow, and I'm eating all of my macros. I'm eating all of my meals. I'm not skipping anything. I'm not fasting. I'm not going to try to make up for this. Okay, so immediately after the binge, I had to release all self-judgment. This is easier said than done and usually takes some work with a coach or a therapist or I did deep trauma healing, so I've done a lot of this, but I was not allowed to make this episode mean anything about me. I knew that the moment I started beating myself up over the fact that this happened would not help me move on from it. It would keep me stuck to it and stuck in my emotions about it. So I could not take it personally. So I immediately shifted into observer mode. Objective mode, rational thought, logical thinking, plan of action. Okay, here's the situation. Here's the facts in front of us. This is what happened. We are going to anticipate. This was the thing I did next. Anticipate what is likely to now occur so I can be prepared to deal with and manage whatever comes up for me next. I started doing a scan. What is likely to happen after this? I will probably get some indigestion, some stomach pain, bloat, discomfort. I'm not going to feel my best in my body tonight. I'm going to accept that, and that's going to be okay because I will not purge. Number 2, I know I'm going to have to tell my significant other. I know I'm going to have to tell my coach. Oh boy, there's going to be some shame and guilt that's going to come up with that, and I need to be prepared to deal with that. Okay? Right now, I'm not diving into any of these things deeply. I'm just assessing. This is what's going to happen. I know it's going to come. Let me be prepared for it. I will probably have massive cravings tomorrow. I might have a headache when I wake up. I might have keto flu symptoms the next 2 to 3 to 4 days as my body gets rid of the excess carbs and sugar and retransitions into keto. So I know that's going to come, right? I know I'm going to need to have my electrolytes on hand. I'm going to probably need some extra electrolytes. I need to be prepared for these things. And when I feel crappy, I need to not turn to binge foods again. Let's see what else. Yep. Basically, I was gearing up to prepare for the consequences of my actions as an adult, responsible adult human person who recognizes they did something wrong, and now we've got to deal with the consequences. Okay, I drew my line in the cement. This will not happen again. It is not an option. It is a non-negotiable. I may not have been present to whatever the heck caused that urge to come so quickly, and I may have fallen to the urge, but now I'm hyper present to the fact that there's something there and that this urge could come back. And if it does, I'm going to be ready for it, and I'm not going to let it happen. So the next thing I did was commit to doing the inner work. I knew I would need to identify what it was that had been lurking under the surface undetected, whatever emotional thing I wasn't dealing with. In the next few days and weeks to come, I would need to get back into my morning meditation practice, get back into my deep breathing and connecting with myself so that I could be present to whatever wanted to come up. There was something that needed to be seen within me that I was not allowing. So I knew this because I'd done this work before, so I knew that there would be something there. And when I did do that work, I uncovered some things that were, they were kind of lurking under there for sure. It was feelings having to do with finances and business and, discomfort going to the next level and things of that nature. A lot of very similar things I was dealing with in 2020. So not much of a surprise there, but they were not conscious. They were kind of lingering, and underneath the surface there was a discomfort, and I couldn't have placed it before the binge. So after the binge, when I went back and I really analyzed through those things and sat with it, that's what I recognized was coming up, and I was like, wow, I was not allowing this. And being present to those things, ultimately, y'all, this is the thing that really causes recovery, is when you can be with yourself with whatever uncomfortable feelings and emotions are there. This is a lot of the time when we're turning to destructive behaviors, whether it's food or drugs or any other vice, it is because there's something that wants to be seen within us that we are not allowing because it's uncomfortable to sit with it. So morning meditation is now a non-negotiable for me. I got to sit with whatever might be coming up before I jump into my day. So that was just a real harsh wake-up call there about rekindling that connection to self. Okay, so that was all number 2. That was the immediately after things I did, the things that I made commitments to. Number 3, the next day and the days after. I ate all my macros. I ate all my meals. I didn't skip meals. I had real whole full meals that filled me up and made me feel satisfied. I did not cut back on anything. I did no purge behaviors of any kind. Did my specified training, did my specified cardio. Took my rest day. Yep, I already talked about this, but this is where I intended to talk about the not reinforcing the behavior by, here's the thing, when you are undernourishing or over-exercising or doing any kind of purge behaviors to try to make up for the binge, you are reinforcing the behavior. You're telling your brain it's okay to do it again because I will just fix it again. And that is how you get back into that cycle of binge and restrict. That is a very dangerous place to be, so you don't want to be there. So that was number 3. Number 4, I committed to not hiding. So I knew it would be hard, but I had to tell Bronson, I had to tell my coach. These are my support systems. And y'all, the tough thing here was releasing the fear of criticism or judgment. There was all this fear around, well, what if they tell me I shouldn't be competing? Or what if they do this? Or what if they criticize me or come down on me for it? Or just that I see that judging look in their faces. And y'all, I can truly say, surprise, surprise. Like, of course. I mean, all I saw was in their eyes, because I talked to them both. I talked to Marcus, my coach, on video chat. And obviously Bronson is here. In their eyes, all I saw was love and care and wanting to be here for me and zero judgment at all. So y'all, the number one thing really, truly in recovery is don't hide. Please don't hide. This is what keeps disorders going and makes them deeper. You cannot recover in silence and solitude. It must be brought into the light. So as hard as that is, I know, because that was the hardest part of it all, is owning up to it. And that's what I'm here doing with you all too. The more people I tell, the lighter I am. Like, I'm getting lighter and lighter as we talk here, because the hold on me and the weight on my shoulders is less and less and less the more people I'm able to share this with. So telling the first person is going to be the hardest. But once you get that out and you tell the people that you know hold a safe space for you, it will be a million times lighter for you and easier to deal with. And now you have a community to do it with. And if you don't have anyone in your life you can tell me. You can drop it in the comments. You can, I don't know if you can leave me messages on YouTube. You can join my Facebook group and you can DM me on Facebook. I'd rather you have somebody to tell. So tell me if that helps. And I will provide every resource I possibly can to you, because I know how painful it can be. Okay, so number 5, I tracked it all. Right? Like, the number one thing we don't want to do when we binge is actually see what we really did. That is scary. A lot of the time we block it out and don't even remember what we ate. Well, I went back, this was days later, I went back and I analyzed the situation again. I thought of every place I stopped and everything I bought, and I found it all in Chronometer and I plugged it all in, and I was like, okay, let's look at the actual numbers. And as shocking as they were for the binge episode, like this one episode, what it did to my whole day of macros was basically doubled what I would normally eat in a day. Had I not stopped it, it probably could have tripled it. But what I'll tell you is the most profound thing that I discovered from doing this. And this is something that I did back in 2020 when I decided that was it, I had to stop. I started doing that as well. I would track every binge. I had to see what the numbers actually came out to and how they were impacting me. We have to look at it, y'all. We cannot hide from these things. It's just like getting on the scale when you haven't wanted to get on the scale in a really long time, because you don't want to see how bad it got with however much weight you put on. We have to look at these things. When we look at it and take stock of it, we can take responsibility and then we can move forward. So I talked a little bit about this on my prep update video, but to see the numbers was powerful for me. First, I was able to see how much damage I did in one episode, but also then I was able to see it as a reflection of my weekly averages, which did not profoundly change my numbers for that week. It was enough to kick me out of a deficit and get me into maintenance, which is exactly what it did. It kept me from getting any lower on the scale and progressing toward my stage goal. But I hit my newest low this week. So it only took a week for me I didn't even have to play catch up. I maintained, my weight maintained, fluctuated a little bit, up a couple of pounds because of the carbs, came right back off with the water weight. And it just maintained. And then I still got my drop the next week. It was 1 week later, so it did put me a week behind essentially in prep. But in everyday life, that's no big deal at all. But I also got to see that had this started to become a habit again, only 2 or 3 of these episodes would have severely set me back. And it would have been much more difficult to recover from physically. So to see how much easier it was to recover because the numbers weren't that bad in the grand scheme of things, in the midst of my disorder, I would have thought, oh my God, I just ended everything. This is this black and white thinking we see in disordered eating. I ruined it. I might as well slash all the tires and just eat all the things. And now we're up to, God only knows, 10,000 calories or something because we feel like we just ruined it. Well, when we can take ourselves back and actually look at the real data, then we can see it may not be as bad as we thought it was. So that's a really, really key element here, to take yourself out of that catastrophizing, catastrophe thinking, and focus on the here and now. And then number 6, the final one, over the last week, I have been enjoying more treats than usual. So I allowed more of what I call bridges, not cheats, not, cheats. I don't like that term, which I just did a video on cheats in my group. So if you want to holler at me about that, join my Facebook group. Link is below. Bridges, I call them bridges because these are the kinds of things that will not impact my progress negatively. They're not unhealthy. They're things that I can incorporate into my life that are more indulgent, that make me feel like I am indulging and I'm having these luxurious experiences, but that are not unhealthy and detracting from the nutrition of my body. So things like 100% dark chocolate, or 100% cocoa powder hot chocolate, which I make with protein powder and some of my element electrolytes. Protein pancakes or protein desserts. I just got a new orange vanilla sparkling water that tastes like creamsicles, which is going to be my nightcap tonight. So all of these things are just a little more indulgent than, I typically don't do them on an everyday basis, especially things like protein pancakes and chocolate. I don't always do dark chocolate, but there are some dark chocolates I can find that will fit my macros. So I could do all these things within my macros. They didn't hinder my progress, but I felt this like extra indulgent experience. So it really shocked me, y'all, that since that binge, even the very next day, I had no urges to binge. Now that doesn't mean I didn't have any cravings. I did have cravings. That is going to happen if you haven't been consuming carbs and you put sugar back into your body. The cravings will come. You have to be prepared for that, which I was with my bridges that helped satisfy the craving in the short term, but did not lead to binge urges. So I'm honestly shocked that I haven't had a binge urge since then. I have had little creeping thoughts about sweets, but it's like, honestly, it all comes back to this, and this is something when I reflected on early in my recovery journey, it was truly, there has to be a full commitment, line in the sand, non-negotiable. And for me, it's the commitment not to purge. The commitment not to purge is what fuels my commitment not to binge. And when I have that more front of mind, which I now, as I've recommitted to my meditation practice, it is more front of mind because I am no longer allowing myself to not be fully present with myself, to not recognize what's happening within that needs to be seen. So let me just kind of recap through these 6 things. So if you are struggling, which I'm with you. If you're struggling, if you've binged recently, here's the 6 quick reference steps to take. In the moment, plan your escape, decide to end the binge, throw the food away, go do your normal workout if you haven't yet, go about your normal rest of your day. Immediately after, no self-judgment. Eliminate the self-judgment. Don't make it mean anything about you. Just observe objectively. Step into your rational thought. Anticipate what is likely to happen next so that it doesn't send you into another binge. And draw your line in the cement. That's it. This will not happen again. The next day and days after, eat all of your meals. Eat all of your macros if you're on a macro plan. Do not skip meals. Do not fast. Do not cut back. Do not do extra exercise. No purge behaviors of any kind. You must teach your brain that this is not acceptable. Number 4, commit to not hiding. Talk to a loved one. Tell somebody about what happened. Don't suffer alone. Number 5, track it all. Try to write it all down. If you use a tracking app, put it in your tracking app. If you don't, just try to estimate or write down what you ate. Just write down a list of everything you ate so you can get a feel for how much you ate. And then recognize how much that is if you continue to do it, but how little that is if it's just one time. So you can commit to, if I don't do this again, it's not going to be a problem. It's no big deal and I can move on. But if it becomes a pattern, it is going to be a problem. And I get to decide to make a different choice now. And then number 6, allow yourself some bridges. Create a list of things that are healthy, things that work within your plan, things that make you feel good, that aren't going to make you feel ill, that also make you feel like you have enjoyable foods in your life that you can go to that taste really good and satisfy any cravings you may have over the next few days that will not hold you back. And then, like my mantra becomes anything to not binge, anything to not binge. So let's say I wasn't on prep and I didn't have specific macros to follow. I would probably boost up my fats going back into ketosis. I would probably let myself have all the fatty meats that I want. The only reason I'm not doing that this time is because I have macros to follow. So I'm leaning on my plan. So if you have a plan and you have a coach, lean on your plan. I'm leaning on my plan. I'm saying I'm following the plan. I've been given this plan. I trust my coach. I'm gonna stick to the plan. If I didn't have a plan and I wasn't trying to make it to stage, I would increase my fats and get all of the indulgent meats that I could until the cravings are gone. So I hope that has helped anyone who might be battling with this. Please know that there is hope. You can recover from a binge. One binge does not mean that you have relapsed. It does not mean that you are that you have ruined anything. You can come back from this. You can get back on track. You can move forward, and you don't have to let this hold you back. You can have freedom. I'm with you. We're fighting together. Drop me a comment if this resonated with you, or if you have any questions or would like me to share anything else about my journey or any other tips that might be able to help you on yours. I am with you all, my lovelies. And with that, I'll see you next time.